Thank you for coming tonight, and welcome to a special meeting of just the representatives of Firewise Communities. And on this opening slide here, I put a map from last February of the Firewise Communities. You can see covers probably more than 50% of the populated area, and there would even be more pink at this point, I think, because this was February of this year. And
Roll
the pink,
map, Susan.
pardon me?
I don't see the map.
You don't. Let's see here. What do you see on your screen, Bob?
I don't see it either.
I still see the picture of Donner Lake.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. How about that? All right, let me stop my share and I'll do something else.
Hit the little red dot in the top left corner.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to share my PowerPoint instead of the whole screen. How's that?
Not yet.
You're not seeing it. What do you see?
No.
What do you
I
see
still
now?
Black
see-
screen.
Still
Pardon
see
me?
Donner Lake.
Yeah, I see Susan Rogers has started sharing, screen sharing, and that's it.
Same.
Screen sharing is paused. Oops, there we go. Hold on, let's try it again. Share. How's that?
There it is.
Okay.
Much better.
All right. Sorry, gang. I've been having sort of a problem with my random access memory this afternoon. But I think
screens.
we're
Sorry,
caught up.
Lisa.
Okay, so here we are. Welcome to the special meeting of Firewise Community Leaders. This is the February map of Firewise Communities. The pink are the people who were certified as of February. The blue was in process. The green is in training. I think actually Pat is here and she can explain in process versus in training, but we'll do that in a few minutes. And like I say, there would be more pink at this point because this was easily 6 months ago. And at some point we'll get an updated map and we can show you that. So as I said, welcome. If you see me looking to the left, that's because where my I can see the chat box and other things going on here, and move that over there. And we'll introduce the coalition officers. Scott Beasley can't be here tonight. We are lucky to have obtained him as the new chair. I'm Susan Rogers. I was founding vice chair of the coalition, and now I'm on the steering committee. So our officers are Scott Beasley and Jeff Peach, wave his hand, is our tech guru, and Virginia will wave her hand, and she's our secretary. And we have also on the steering committee Bob Long, who was there's the immediate past chair, and Nick Johnson, who joined the steering committee in this year. Nick, wave your hand. And Kristen Cook is also on our steering committee, and she was not able to be here tonight. And Pat Leach is also here. And Pat, if you can raise your hand and say hi there. And Pat, why don't you give a couple, 20-minute elevator description of what your position is in terms of being the liaison to the Firewise community from the Fire Safe Council, and what your job is basically. So Pat, if you can unmute yourself and give yourself a little introduction, please.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Jamie Jones invited me to become an employee of the Fire Safe Council after 3 years of volunteering and creating Firewise Communities on the San Juan Ridge. I apologize, I didn't look for the numbers, but we now have 65 certified, recognized Firewise Communities and 87 that are in process. And some of those are pending with NFPA and CAL FIRE as to their status. So just at the top of this time, I might also mention that I'm waiting for about 36 previously recognized Firewise communities to submit their data to NFPA. Our deadline date is November 19th. If you are having any troubles logging into your portal, this is a national problem right now. And let me know, I can give you a phone number that you can call to get a temporary password. They are having an issue with their passwords. So Jamie invited me to become an employee of the Fire Safe Council because she knew that we needed a dedicated person that would focus on any and all issues with Firewise communities. From taking those of you in training through the whole steps of becoming nationally recognized, and for those that are just seeking help in some way or another. We have a Firewise community that was archived for a while because enough information hadn't been understood by their leader, and they kind of dropped off for a while, even though they've continued to be a Firewise community. And I'm excited to see that we probably will have them back in the fold within the next couple of months. I didn't actually prepare anything else to say. I am looking forward to answering all of your questions because that seems to be what my communications are, mostly with the Firewise communities. So,
And so Pat, what you do, you're part-time, 20 hours a week, and although you probably end up putting in a little bit more, and specifically you're the liaison to Firewise communities to help them in the process of becoming certified. Is that correct?
correct, correct.
Okay.
Helping them at any stage that they are in for any reason. And one of the things I might mention is that in 2018, NFPA determined that Firewise communities needed to have a limit, and they are now limited to 2,500 residents. And so therefore, we have several Firewise communities that need to be broken up into areas that make the most sense, topography-wise, neighborhood-wise, etc. So Lake Wildwood has already split into two. We're working with Greater Alta Sierra, who have 8,500 parcels.
Wow.
And so that's going to be broken into several parts. Aspoa is splitting away, and they will probably become two Firewise communities. But I need to reach out to all of those other folks within Greater Alta Sierra so that we can continue your recognition with NFPA and you don't lose any benefits. Also working with Banner Mountain, and there will be some others as well. Some areas up in Truckee will be split as well.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
And Pat, could you put your email again in the chat? The things show up in the chat only after people join. So everybody who had joined at the time you first put it in would be able to see it, but people who showed up after you first put it in the chat would need to see it, have you put it in there again.
Okay,
Chat
good
is
to
just,
know. I didn't know that.
yeah, the stuff in the chat is to any given attendee becomes live only starting at the point when they join the meeting.
Gotcha.
So tonight's format is pretty informal. We decided to have this because once we got onto Zoom and then started inviting the public to make our once a year annual Zoom meetings count as your annual educational event during the pandemic, we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose focus on actually being a coalition for Firewise communities to help you run your community. And I have some questions from Stonebridge. I have some similar questions from Foxwood. And I think what I'm going to do is just read a couple of those here where I have similar questions. And then we'll have you unmute yourself if you have questions or answers or something. Some of these questions, at least a couple that I got from Dick at Stonebridge, we may have to handle that in a survey or a poll. But for example, Foxwood asked, and this is one that we also got from Stonebridge, how to engage new neighbors and those who are not currently on email groups? That is a tough question. If somebody would like to, I know that Cascade Shores has a new neighbor kit or something like that. If there's anybody out there from Cascade Shores or anybody who uses a packet of materials and to give, either drop off at the house or knock on their door when you have somebody move into your community, could you unmute yourself and chime in? We really need your participation, and on this virtual format, it's not easy, but we'd really be grateful if you would help us out here. Anybody?
Okay.
Jeff, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
We at Banner Mountain, we're so big, we have a lot of what we call neighborhood leaders. And they might just work a street or something. We have a little packet of actually stuff we've sort of developed over time. But one thing that was very successful, I actually contacted the California Fire Safe Council. I think they're down in Fort McClellan or something, but I did this all through email, and I asked them for some flyers, and they had two nice little flyers, one on home hardening and one on just basic defensible space. And they sent me 4,000 of them. I asked for some, and all of a sudden these boxes showed up. I didn't have to pay anything. It was just they just shipped them out. So there's a lot of material there. If you just Google up California Fire Safe Council and get on their site and ask them, they'll send you this stuff. At least they did for me a year ago. So
I have an idea. Maybe those groups who have packets of I'll put my email in the chat group. Any of you out there who have a packet that you make available to residents, if you could send that to me, I could compile each packet into one PDF per neighborhood, and we could put those on our website and then let everybody know where they are. And then you could take a look at them and say to yourself, oh, well, gee, we could do that here. And so that's one idea. And Jeff, how do you, and I know there are other communities there who have block captains or street leaders. How did you recruit those street leaders?
We started out just, we created our committee back, in the before time, back when we were meeting in person, and I just sent out emails. Banner Mountain has an email list with 500 people on it, I think. And we just kind of recruited that way and say, hey, if you're interested in helping out, come on down to this meeting. And we got quite a bit of response, but the initial contact was through email. And then people showed up, and then word spread. One thing I know, that one of the side effects of the whole neighborhood leader concept was that people were going out and meeting their neighbors, and they loved it. They said, wow, we're meeting people and seeing them and getting to know neighbors. So there was a real positive side effect of that. So started with an email list that we, just, and I encouraged people to forward this to anybody that might be interested. So we weren't just limited to our people that happened to be on the email list.
Right. It can be difficult to get people's emails. I'm in a neighborhood of only about, I don't know, somewhere between 60 and 75 households, and I pretty much only have probably half of them on email. Paul, I think your box lit up. Did you have something to share?
I did, thank you. In Penn Valley, we're in training, but Paulette, our chairwoman, has gotten a packet together. I saw in her chat that she's going to be forwarding it to you. But in Penn Valley, since most of the residents have a lot of acreage, It's a challenge sometimes with new neighbors to contact them. So once Paulette gets the information, at least two of us on the committee go with the packet and actually set up a phone appointment with the neighbors. And we've had success meeting them face to face. We're fully masked. We don't know what type of response we're going to get in that regard. But in our last meeting with one of the new neighbors, very receptive. He gave us a tour of his whole shop. So that's been successful. There's nothing like eye-to-eye contact.
For sure. Yeah, it can feel scary to knock on doors, and especially for people in the more remote, shall we say, less civilized area. I know that's an issue with Kristen way out there in Ubet, where there are people who don't want to have their doors knocked on. But but thank you, Paul. That's good input. Does anybody else have experience with block captains or greeting new people? Virginia, go ahead.
So in Lake Wildwood, we had the Lobo fire in 2017, and that's what really ignited neighborhood groups in our community. So we actually had, I had started a neighborhood group of 30 residents around my circle and just sent out an invitation and put it on each person's door and asked them to come to a neighborhood meeting. And the fire department, I invited the fire department, and we talked about what happened during the Lobo fire. And then we started sharing contact information with each other, and then had a sign up list for emails so that we could start distributing information to this neighborhood group. And we ended up taking this idea to, there was a community forum for the Lake Wildwood community, and presented that idea to them. And we started neighborhood groups within the Lake Wildwood area. And I think we have 26 or more neighborhood groups within our community that are distributing information to the local residents. So there's actually a neighborhood group captain, and then they are getting our coalition, like now, they're feeding back information to the local neighborhoods. So they're getting coalition of Firewise Communities agendas and monthly meetings. And because this is a public meeting, they're able to disseminate that to the local communities also. So it's a push one way, and then also send information the other way. So it works both ways. So.
Great, thank you. And I think we'll move along to another question, but it's worth noting, and you probably all know this, the best time to get your residents concerned and caring about contacting each other, being in touch with you, and this sort of thing is right after a big fire. So that's when everybody's sort of has heightened attention on the need to be connected and to know what's going on. So sometimes you can jump on that. Another similar question, and I have had a couple of groups indicate to me that they will send me their welcome packets. And so we'll get those together and get those on the website before the end of the year and notify you. Another question that is common to both Foxwood and Stonebridge is private properties that are adjacent to, well, I guess would be within a Firewise community, properties that are not responsive to creating defensible space. What can be done to engage them? Let me just say, knock on their door, try and have some communication. There is on the coalition website under the Firewise community tab, or the page called Firewise Communities, there's a link to a letter called, I think, the 30-day courtesy notice. And it's something that you can adapt for your own use. I think it originally came from Cascade Shores. And basically it's a letter where you can get Google for the logo of whatever your fire agency is for your area, whether it's Consolidated, Rough and Ready, Chicago, Peardale, and that sort of thing. You can put the logo of that at the top. You can put the NFPA logo at the top, kind of make it look official. And then you use the wording to say like, hello, we're the Firewise Community Steering Committee for the blah, blah, fill in your name community. And we've noticed these things going on at your property. Then there's a checklist and you check off what you see not being in compliance. And then at the bottom, it says, we thought we'd give you this 30-day courtesy notice because there is a procedure for you needing to be brought into compliance, and we'd like to give you this opportunity to do that yourself before it gets reported. I forget exactly the wording, but basically you're telling people like, hey, we're being nice to you here, please shape up. And if you don't, we're going to report you to the county. This works in the unincorporated county because they have a system through their website. There's also a link to that on our website of how to report that. And there's only a couple of us within the city of Grass Valley or Nevada City. So I think that's a different issue, and people can contact me about that if you're within city limits. The Stonebridge question was about, what do you do about, let me see, I'll get it on my next slide here, except that it's way down there. Let's see.
Susan, I had a question. Has anyone done that? Has anyone had to resort to that?
You mean the 30-day notice?
Not the 30-day notice, but take action after the letter's sent out?
I think so.
Has there been any result from that?
Oh, yeah. As far as I know, I don't think Kent Reese is on the call tonight, and the Cascade Shores people are relatively newer. I think they've had some turnover, but and Bob, maybe you remember, but I remember Kent telling stories about how, yes, generally they got response because people didn't want to be reported.
And then the other thing is, even when they're reported and one of the guys shows up from the county, at least talking with Patrick Mason, I mean, the success rate is like in the high 80s or low 90%. I mean, people, once they get the official notice, especially from the county, everybody starts to work. I mean, they've not had to go through the whole what do you call it?
Fining,
Fining situation, I think much at all. I think it's been very successful with the knock on the door.
So the county sends out a notice if you report that?
So the first thing you do is you do the friendly knock on the door. Then the Firewise community can issue the letter, the friendly letter that is on the website saying, hey, you know, we've noticed this, and our trained advisors say that we think this is what you should do. If they still ignore you, then you could report them to the county. And typically within 30 days, the county will send an inspector out and they will issue a citation if they don't meet the county code. And what happens to retain anonymity, when the county comes out, they don't just look at one property. They'll look at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 properties. So you want to make sure your yard is in order, because you could end up with a citation. And then it goes from there. And it's been a very successful program.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Does that answer, Dick? Does that answer your question? And there was also this issue: how do you deal with high risk abutters? And I believe by that, Dick means properties that are outside but immediately adjacent to your Firewise community, which are not being which are not good, you know, which are
it's part of the same question.
Which are a danger, right?
Yeah.
I know that Bob had a problem with BLM land right outside of Sherwood Forest, and he spent a few years getting BLM's attention on that. And Bob, can you give us a very brief thing about what you did about that? But on the other hand, I think Dick's talking about private property here, so that's a little bit different.
Well, two things. BLM, after 4 years, they streamlined their whole permit process, and now it's streamlined for everybody. And once we got going on it, the whole thing took about 2 or 3 months to get through the system. And now, a year later, it's done, and everything's masticated and chipped.
And who paid for that, Bob? Who
Hmm?
paid for that?
The main work was done by Cal Fire and Cal National Guard, and we had a crew in here from the CCC for one day. So we were lucky. We just hit it right. There were crews in the area, and we signed up for it, and they came in and knocked everything down. We had to pay for the chipping. So Cal Fire and Cal Guard, they knocked everything down into piles, but we had to chip it. But the Fire Safe Council track chipper is extremely efficient, and they've chipped 4 acres for us. And this was manzanita you could not walk through, 5 acres, and they knocked it down. And I think it took 8 or 9 days to no, 7 days to get it almost all chipped.
And
And then we were lucky.
you have a neighborhood association that had a budget that was able to cover that, and you took up a collection too, right?
That was just me going around knocking on doors asking for money.
Okay,
And about 75% of the neighbors chipped in. So
okay.
there's always a few who won't. There was another question in the chat though about a vacant parcel in the neighborhood, and how do you contact that person? mynevadacounty.com, go to my neighborhood and look up the address, look up the parcel, and you'll find the address. You then can go to, oh God, help me here, Susan. Once you get the address, you can go to.
Yeah, you can't find the owner online anymore. They've instituted some privacy rules, but you can go into the Root Center and use the
Right.
kiosk there, or speak to the people at the desk, and they will help you find the parcel on the map. And then over the counter, they will give you the
Right.
what they have on the ownership of the parcel.
So ultimately the county will give you the owner's name, and then you can write a letter to them and ask them to mitigate the fire hazard.
Right, right.
If you're friends with a realtor, you can probably get the names easier than that.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. Thank you, Dick. Yeah,
That's what we did. We have 2 realtors in the neighborhood, and that's what we did.
yeah. Okay, so and so Bob's a resource for anybody who wants to pursue that. I heard somebody was going to ask a question. Go ahead, please.
This is Amy Matthews from the Echo Ridge Firewise Community. We had an issue with a property that wasn't being abated, and our committee chair, Dennis Garrity, talked to Jamie Jones about it and was told that there was a potential sharing of the costs if the homeowner doesn't, or the property owner doesn't take care of the abatement, if they get the citation and ignore everything and the fees start adding up, and the county has to send somebody to do the abatement, that it's possible the reporting party might be responsible for some of the fees.
No, that is not true. Before the process begins, the way the county ordinance is written, if you ask your neighbor to abate a piece of property that is within your 100-foot zone, but on their property, they can ask you to share in the cost 50-50. Once the citation process begins, once they're written a citation, that portion of the county ordinance disappears. Once a citation is written, the full cost is on the onus of the owner of the property.
Okay, that's very different.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Mhm.
Let's move along to a question that Pat can help us with. The folks at Foxwood are asking us about their action plan renewal. They're asking, how does the team get put together to update an action plan?
Yes, and excuse me, I was looking for her name. I was just chatting with her recently. So the action plan is now, CAL FIRE wants to see it in 3 years, each of the goals for education and mitigation spelled out. And I do have templates. I do have examples that I can send to anyone that needs to update their action plan. And it's the format that CAL FIRE is most interested in. It wants to have a very standardized format but all the goals are yours to create. And no one is going to complain about what your goals are. However, I will make suggestions on making sure that complete information is provided to your neighborhoods. So
Thank you.
just email me and I'll send you and tell me that that's what you need, and I'll send off the examples and template.
Does anybody else have a question about their action plan for staying certified? If you have a question, please unmute yourself and give it to us right now.
Hi, this is Lisa McCreena from Oxford, and I have been working with Pat, and she's a terrific resource, and did send the template. But my understanding is that I read somewhere, sorry, I've been on some site, I can't remember where it was, maybe it was the NFPA website that said it's not just the Firewise community members. I thought was also, you know, like somebody from your local fire agency and other agencies that get involved with that. Is that not the case?
Not with your action plan. And Lisa, I couldn't hear everything that you said. If you would speak a bit slower. The risk assessment needs oversight by the fire chief or other professionals, and I help with those as well. But the action plan comes from the community, and it's based on the recommendations in the risk assessment.
Okay. I think that was, and you and Lisa and Pat can have more direct communication if they want to continue that conversation. We also had a question from Foxwood about NFPA committee members. What is the expectation? And I think what they mean is anybody who's on a committee for a Firewise community, is there an expectation of what exactly we're supposed to be doing? A committee member.
So
yeah, again, that was me. I submitted that question. It's Lisa Karina again. I'm having some difficulty getting the only person listed right now as a committee member on the NFPA website, and I just ideas of how I can engage others who will be willing to have their names so listed as a committee member on the website and give more sense for me.
I would say that it is, yes, I'm in the same predicament where I am in my neighborhood. The fellow who originally started our Firewise community has become seriously ill over the years. I'm kind of burnt out. One of our other members and her husband have been supportive on specific projects. They're eventually going to move to Montana in the next couple of years. And then my other fellow has some health problems. So it's like, yikes, what do you do? It's been especially problematic, and I don't have any easy answers, but during the pandemic, you know, we're not supposed to be really out there meeting with people and you don't want to go knocking on doors. It's a challenge, and there's not an easy answer. Pat, do you have any thoughts or anybody else?
Yes, Lisa does have an interesting community to work with, but there is going to be some grant work happening near her neighborhood, and perhaps we can promote that information, sharing it, and see if that doesn't pique the interest. Lisa, I'd like to work with you on that and see what we can do. There's two people on my committee, my Firewise community, but I do have probably half the people are extremely active within the community as well. So yeah, Lisa has a challenging neighborhood in Foxwood Slate Creek.
Okay, thank you. Terry raised her hand. Terry, would you go ahead, please?
Sure. So I'm with Deer Creek Southside, and we formed back in 2019. And I think one of our successes in getting the committee together was we don't have a defined structure. So we don't have a president, vice president. We are in it more for, we have about 9 members of our committee that meet monthly, and we just pick what we want, what we feel good about, like what would we enjoy doing. And so I think we all have different strengths that we bring to the table, and we just have a lot of fun. And it's just an interesting mix of the neighborhood, where we have new people to the neighborhood. We have people who have been here for years and years. But I think when we started, it was more of a, as people mentioned earlier, get to know your neighbor and meet one another. And so it was more of a community build versus feeling like a weight and a big responsibility.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, Terry, that is a really good reminder to me. I think we started with an ice cream social or some such thing. But yeah, remembering to just get together as we can.
Thank you. Let's move on to some of these questions that I got from Dick at Stonebridge, the second bullet there. Are there any communities who promote, where you actually promote to your neighborhood residents getting a defensible space advisory visit? And then if you do promote that, do you have any way of tracking that or getting feedback about whether people are actually doing or not, or have any kind of rough idea about how many in your neighborhood? Obviously, this can vary so much from small communities, like mine's relatively small, 60 to 75, but then you've got the 2,500 household groups, which are much harder to track. But is anybody out there, would you unmute yourself about defensible space visits? Vicki Reeder, please go ahead. Oops, you just muted yourself. You have to unmute yourself there. There, thank you, go.
A couple of years ago, we did a thing for the new people moving into the neighborhood. And we said if they would do a DSAV, that we would donate, I forget, $50 to the Fire Safe Council. And we got about half of them were agreeable. And our thinking is that people sign up for a DSAV either when they're brand new or when they think their property is pretty good. If their area is a mess, they're not going to call. And so we got about half, and it worked, I would say, fairly well. But
you have a homeowners association with a budget that you were able to get that $50 from?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And of course, it's more difficult for just neighborhoods that don't have that association funding capability. Thank you, Vicki. Paulette, would you go ahead with your idea, please?
Yeah, we have actually put a DSAVE into our action plan for every other year. We did one 2.5 years ago, and what we did is we set up a community one, and the whole group from Lake Wildwood came in and sent people to, I think we did like 7 properties, maybe 6 properties all at one time. Now we're really tiny. We only have 19 parcels. So we're a really tiny Firewise community, hopefully certified soon. But we're going to try this again and do it as a community project and see if we can get the rest of the parcels that did not participate the last time to do a first one, and those of us who did one to have them come back and tell us what else we need to do. Again, we have large parcels here. We're a 5-acre minimum community. We have up to a 60-acre parcel. So we have more than just the 100 feet that we have to worry about. We have some pretty heavily forested area that's outside the 100 feet that is kind of a problem because it's all ladder fuel and tight canopies and just a mess. So, but we're gonna try that route and do it as a community and set up a day where we have a group of D-Save people come in and split out, and we provided them lunch when we were done, and we then had a community meeting on the results.
Thank you. Thank you. That's helpful. Vicky
You're
has her
welcome.
hand up again. So Vicky, please go ahead. Let's see, Vicky, did you have anything else to share? Your hand is still up? No? Okay. So, and folks, if you don't know where that little hand raise thing is, look on your control bar for Zoom, and under more, there should be something called reactions. In the bottom half of the little reactions box should be something that says raise hand, and that will get your hand up. Terry, go ahead, please.
I was just going to comment for the DSAV visit. There is a banner from Fire Safe Council. There was a time that they were asking neighborhoods to put the banner somewhere in your neighborhood. So we did a month of having it in 2 different locations in our area, and that seemed to really help. And getting people just even asking what it is.
Okay.
And then we also had two of our community members went through the training, and so that also helped because then people were getting familiar with it.
Great, good point. Thank you. Sandy Houston, please go ahead.
Yes. Number one, with the defensible space advisory visits, we are hoping that the training is going to be coming up for that again, because we have 1 or 2 members, myself included, that would like to take that and be able to offer it to obviously not only our own community, but other communities around. And also in kind of the same vein, AB 38 is something that I just found out about, that you cannot sell a parcel without meeting defensible space requirements. That got quite a few of our neighbors' ears perked up as they are looking at selling their property and moving out of state also. So that's a good way to get people suddenly involved if they have a long-range plan of wanting to sell and move out of the area. They can't leave their parcel anymore where it is not within the requirements of the state for those defensible spaces.
Thank you for reminding us on the AB 38 question, Sandy. We have been sort of in touch with the fire people about that over the last 6 months that it's gone into effect. And initially, the answer we got was, well, nobody, there's no money attached. They passed that law with like an unfunded mandate that, and so the various fire agencies are going like, well, how are we going to pay for the people to go out and do the inspections? And how do you coordinate the communication? It's not an easy issue. And at first there wasn't anybody who was going to be able to pick up that ball. I've heard more recently that, I forget exactly who it is, and Pat might have more information, but this is something we've got to get on our agenda for a topic for a Firewise community meeting. And I'm thinking maybe February. We've already got our December meeting agenda set, and we're taking a break in January, but this might be a very good topic for February of next year, is to get everybody up to speed on that. I know that Jim Turner from CAL FIRE did do a PowerPoint presentation to the California Association of Realtors about this. So there's a lot of awareness about it, but there's still a lot of lack of awareness also, and kind of confusion. Pat, do you have any comments to add on this?
Yes, thank you, Susan. AB 38 is a requirement that buyers receive a disclaimer stating that they are aware that the property should have clearance. There is nothing that says that, and they're getting this notice in escrow, which is after they have probably set the price on the home. And what I'm concerned about is, I have been told that many properties have dropped out of escrow because the owner wasn't willing to share in the cost of the mitigation, even if they lived in the home for decades.
The seller, in
So-
other words, was like, too bad, that's it.
Right, and yet the buyer in signing this disclosure would have to perform the work within a year, and some cases it was tens of thousands of dollars. So the Fire Safe Council has been asked to be one of those inspectors. However, CAL FIRE will not be giving the training for this until January of 2022. So we are gearing up for it. I don't know that we'll have more than one person. And if Nevada County is turning over 1,200 properties a year, it's going to be hard for one inspector to take care of that. The difference being, Firewise Council, I believe, now it's not set in stone yet, but I believe that they will be giving their recommendations and also giving an estimate of what the cost potentially will be to the buyer or to the seller. However, if CAL FIRE, who has one inspector for the entire unit, is the one who does the inspection, there will be a timeline attached to that and no idea of what the cost would be. So this is all still up in the air. And actually, in another year or so, the home hardening portion of defensible space will also be part of this equation, where the homes will need to be retrofitted. And right now in the law, it only states that inexpensive methods should be recommended to the people. But that means potentially changing your roof or adding tempered glass or dual panes to your window, making sure your decks have some sort of fire resistance when they are attached to the home. So this is quite honestly a big problem that we have no easy answers for right now.
That's excellent information, Pat. And we'd certainly want to be coordinated in terms of who's doing your training and maybe getting one or two of those folks to be our speakers in February and that. Thank you. Whew. We've got a house built in '88 and it's a nice modern house. And I think we've got dual pane windows, but it's T111 siding, you know, it's wood paneling on the siding. So and it would be a small fortune.
T1 is acceptable as long as it's maintained.
Okay.
I know in my area, I have a lot of T1, but people like to see the wood age naturally, and that's when it becomes problematic. But if it's sealed properly, it still resists embers.
Thank you. That makes sense. I've heard the same about decks and other things, as if they're painted and that sort of thing, then they're more fire resistant. If they're old and dry and kind of raw, that's when they become a real danger. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pat. Let's go back to our slide here that's on your screen, this fifth bullet in the center section. We do have Firewise communities that use walkie-talkies and radios as backup for evacuation communication. And I think our August or September meeting was, we did have some communities talking about that. So unless anybody has some specific points, Dick, I could refer you to the video of that on our website. And
yes, the lady from Lightning Tree has an excellent program, and that's up on the Washington Ridge.
Right, and I believe she spoke at our meeting. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Jones.
Right.
Is that because they don't have access to internet sometimes up there? Was it specifically a radio program that they're doing at Washington?
If I remember correctly, it was because, yes, they had definitely have internet access issues, and they found that the radio worked much better. Pat, is that your understanding too?
Well, another thing they do is when red flag warning or lightning is expected, they actually patrol. They have, I believe, 3 different people that will patrol that evening and stay awake and look for any activity within their view.
Yeah, almost like a ship's watch. Yeah, staying up late and overnight.
Susan,
yes,
Louise Jones is on this call. She could speak to it a little bit.
Oh, good.
If you'd like for her to.
Louise, are you available, and can you unmute and comment on this?
Yes, I'm here. The reason we took this on was not to do with the internet, but it was because in this neighborhood, when we started talking about Firewise and the concerns we had about fire, we found that people wanted to talk about the most extreme case the most. In other words, the fire comes up on you and you run out of your house and leave. We wanted a system that could be in all the houses, or they're in most of the houses, where if there's an emergency, everybody could be woken up simultaneously with a warning. You're right about the PSPS. We have night watches. We only had 1 night watch this year, and that was because the neighbors were concerned about the river fire, which wasn't that far away. We never had a PSPS, but it's a night watch of 5 individuals, and they have different means to watch for an emergency. One of them being going outside and smelling smoke, or looking for something in the distance, or calling. We have our own radio station up on the next ridge. They have a view of the entire area. You can call and talk to them. So it's actually 5 people with 2-hour shifts. And we go through the night and just do this watch, which we did a lot in the 2 prior years to this year. But we were very fortunate this year and didn't need to do the night watch like before. So our radio system consists of handheld radios and a base station that's on our ridge. And it goes beyond the Lightning Tree neighborhood. It's the entire Washington Ridge and Little Rock Creek Canyon and Sailor Flat Ridge. People from all that area is involved in this.
Thank you, Louise. You know, since we did cover this in September, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to put your name and phone number and email in the chat, and people who are interested in more information could contact you directly about that. And for more detail, and also if you go to the Zoom archive on the website, you will be able to see in the descriptions of our previous meetings which ones were about the emergency communication systems. And since I do want to keep moving along to some of our other questions, especially this first one here on our screen that I'm running my arrow back and forth on, because we get a lot of questions about how can my Firewise community get some grant money, and you know, it could be out there. You know, we keep hearing about more money being available from the feds or the state, and perhaps Pat knows about shovel-ready projects and this sort of thing, if projects might be available if they were bundled through the Fire Safe Council. Can you address that, Pat?
That's exactly right, Susan. If you have an area that you would like to have, that might be a common area or an evacuation route or some such thing, what you need to do is to gather up the information and speak to Jamie Jones at the Fire Safe Council. She is looking to bundle together projects, and she is constantly writing grants, larger grants now, and looking for those shovel-ready projects. So, for instance, we've just gotten, I believe, about $5 million for one project that all of the projects are known. All of the paperwork has been done on them. And that's when she's able to submit. So I don't know exactly the process, but they do need to be shovel ready. And everybody needs to agree that the work can be done if it's on private property, for instance. But I'll see if I can get together with Jamie and create a document that tells you every step that needs to happen for that. The grant cycles come up at odd times and they come up from many different sources. So this is something that you can submit for any time of the year. And I think that's the best way these days to get grant money in your neighborhood, because just being a small community, it's very difficult to go after these big dollars. But when you partner with the county and with the Fire Safe Council, you're more likely to be successful to get that grant money coming your way.
Thank you. Go ahead.
This is Vicki. I have a question. So when you say shovel ready, do you mean that the CEQA and NEPA permitting already has to be done?
Well,
go ahead, Pat.
CEQA now has a streamlined version. Jamie took the training for it this last year. So yes, but you see, when we're working with neighborhoods that are perhaps in the same type of vegetation areas, or if they're riverways or some such thing, if there's a commonality to it, she's the one that picks up on that and knows where to place those grants. You may wait a couple of years before she can find the right grant for you, but she's bringing a lot of money into the county. And like Susan said, there's literally billions of dollars out there exactly for this. And remember, that's your tax dollars returning to you.
So let me ask the question again, because I wasn't quite clear. So the streamlined version is Cal VTP, and it does not apply to 501c3 or nonprofits. But when you say shovel ready, do you mean that the neighborhood association should already have the Cal VTP or CEQA or NEPA permits done, or do we go to Jamie first and ask for her to do that?
So what we do is we partner with the county, and the county will then pass that along to the Fire Safe Council to manage. And that's how we become involved. I do not believe the individual neighborhoods need to do the CEQA, NEPAs. I believe that the people that do it all the time would be creating those. That's my understanding at this time. But I'll need Jamie to fill me in on that. That's why I'd like to create something so that you know the steps.
Yeah, getting those NEPA CEQA things can be very proud. I mean, it takes professionals. Yeah, to do the assessment. Sandy, would you go ahead, please, with your question?
Yeah, Pat, I just wanted to say that Casa Loma Firewise Community would really be interested if you and Jamie could get something, because we'd very much like to work with Lower Colfax on the Woodpecker Ravine area, which we all know is a huge fire danger. And we actually have property owners that are ready to sign off on right of entries. They want a project in their area. So if we could fast track getting that information and I could start reaching out to those property owners, that would be fabulous.
Okay, thank you,
Yes,
Sandy.
yes, Sandy, we've spoken about this before, and a CAL FIRE is very concerned about Woodpecker Ravine. So thank you for that, and we'll keep working on it.
Dick Metzer, please go ahead.
Well, I was wondering if anyone has received a grant, any grant monies to date. Also, we're in the process of getting NRCS grant. And we've gone through the process of having a professional certified NRCS forester do our forestry plan. We have 12 acres of forest. It's common area to our development. And we're now in line to get that grant money in the next funding cycle. So I was wondering if anybody has actually gotten grant monies to date.
Pat, do you know?
Dick, are you talking about an EQIP grant? So that's a cost share.
Yes, it is. And it looks like from what we already have been working with Evan Smith, who is the forester for NRCS, super people, by the way.
Yes.
And it looks like it could cover up to maybe even 50 or 60% of the cost for the forestry plan, management plan.
Paige from Greenhorn, did you have a question or a comment? Yeah, I saw you with a raised hand, and now you've kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I took it down because it's not an EQIP grant, but we did actually just get approved today, is my understanding, at the county supervisors meeting for a $62,000 grant to help us with putting up 2 20,000-gallon fire suppression water tanks in our neighborhood. And it was, the grant was some money for COVID relief or COVID mitigation or something. I'm not quite sure. I wasn't involved in the grant writing or anything, so I don't know all the details, but it was related to COVID. So, but it's a pretty big deal.
So Paige, did your Firewise community approach the supervisors about that? Exactly what was the process for getting the county to release this funding for those water tanks?
I would have to look back in my notes to give you all the details. I do have documents that I could send you if you want, but it was, there was someone who was coordinating the grants and reviewed that. There were a lot of people that applied for this money, and then there was a group that reviewed all the grants and recommended a certain number of them to the county. And then that approval by the Board of Supervisors was yesterday.
Okay. Would you be willing to put your contact information in the chat so that if there were other groups that were sort of looking to try to get water tanks, for example, that they might be able to contact you directly?
Yeah, sure. Or I can, they can contact me and I can get them to the people that know the answers.
Right,
yeah.
right. That's
I don't know how we found out about this or how we even decided, oh, maybe that money could be used for water tanks, but
I think I think for me, I saw something in the newspaper about applying and then a committee deciding, but I don't know exactly what it was called. Yeah, if you could put that in the chat, then other people might help. Jeff, could you go ahead, please?
Yeah, we've gotten we're on our second round of EQIP grants. We, meaning my family's property itself. We haven't done anything like Dick was talking about. It was joint property, so I'm not exactly sure how that works. But the EQIP grants are there. You just got to run through the the startup process and talk to Evan Smith and make it happen. It takes a while, but there is money out there for that. So.
And that's still a cost share situation. So either as individual property owners, you have to be able to put up the rest of it, or there needs to be some sort of HOA funding to pick that up. Right. Amy Matthews, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks. My committee chair, Dennis Garrity, is trying to raise his hand and can't figure out how, but we did get funding from the State Farm grant that came through earlier this year for work that was to be done. So Dennis, if you're unmuted, you can tell more about it.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Yeah, we did receive Jack Emery, who I replaced as the chairperson for our Echo Ridge Firewise community. He wrote a grant proposal And we did receive $500 through NFPA and State Farm. And we used that to do a project at the Echo Ridge Christian School around the corner, which was a project that was targeted actually when we put our proposal together as a problem. So we were able to take that $500 and actually also approach the school board, and they kicked in another $800. And then we had a wonderful group of guys from Tree Walker come in, and they actually donated about $600 a time, and we completely cleaned up about 5 acres along Shannon, right up against the school. So it was a great help.
And Dennis, was the $500, was that annual kind of contest or whatever you call it that NFPA does every year, where groups from all over the country submit a proposal and then a certain number of them get funded to kind of win the $500? Was that?
I believe so, because I know the year before that we did not receive it. We put in a proposal and didn't receive it. So yeah, I believe that was the annual Green Waste project.
Thank you. Amy, did you have one more comment? And then I've got something from Kim that I want to address.
Nope, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Kim in the chat had said, many property owners do not want the defensible space advisory visit because they are concerned they will be singled out by drawing attention to themselves. This also goes for filling out the self-assessments. Kim, are you able to unmute yourself and kind of explain what that means? They are concerned that they will be singled out drawing attention to themselves.
Can you hear me?
Yes, barely.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so I am a Firewise Community and Training Coordinator. And in my area, we have a lot of people that have come here from all over. And so there's not, it seems like there's a lot of different point of views. And so one of the hesitancies that I've had from people turning in their initial forms so we can finish filling out the application is that they're worried that their insurance company is going to somehow learn about this, that it's going to draw attention, to them. They don't want their insurance. Some people did not get their insurance canceled after the Paradise Fire, especially certain people with impound accounts, like Farmers Insurance impound accounts on mortgages. And so they're just really very tentative about wanting to do a self-assessment. And I asked Pat about this, and she did explain that this information is really just used by me and us in getting an application put together and starting to come up with plans. Maybe over time people will be a little less suspicious, but that's what I've found, is that people, in trying to start a Firewise community, they at first were worried that this was a homeowners association, that we're going to tell them what to do, that type of thing. And that's what I'm coming up, against in just trying to collect my initial forms. So that's just happened in the last, week or so. I've, basically had to get on the phone and sort of try to talk to some people to get their forms back. And even after helping them understand that these forms are not seen by a insurance company and that I'm only going to use them to put together our sort of log for the year, and that I will, I'll shred them, at the end of the day after I'm done putting everything together, they still wouldn't send me like a homeowner self-assessment because they don't want even me to know the facts about the state of their house, so.
Wow.
And they're right across the street from me. I told him, I'm not gonna, I guess he doesn't really want me to know the details of the house. State.
There are some people who you will just never be able to convince. And,
Well, he did fill out the work log, and they have 3 5-acre parcels in a row. And I just was grateful for the work log, and we'll just move on.
Yeah, yeah.
For now, but it's various levels of this feeling that someone's going to know. So it's not just him. Other people were like, well, I don't really want to fill certain, information out because I'm holding my breath and I don't want someone to come over here or someone to cite me or so, you know what I mean? So,
right.
That's what my comment is.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Sandy, go ahead.
I just wanted to let Kim know that I empathize with her. We are trying to get our project going here for Casa Loma. And I was excited. I'm almost up to 25% of the property owners returning the form for the risk assessment. Everybody that was, oh yes, absolutely, we want to do this. We're all in. We're going to support you however we need to. All I'm hearing now are crickets. So Kim, I feel for you. You have good company.
Well, I also wanted to comment that, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, that there are some people who were all in at the beginning, and when they realized that even the people who do nothing will benefit, they decided not to participate. So we have and everybody finds that they have interesting things about their neighborhood. In my case, I literally had people that wanted to help me coordinate and they wanted to be a part of this, and they're feuding with a neighbor, and that neighbor has decided not to participate. So now these people participate, and it's really hard.
Wow. So when the neighbor says they're not going to participate, what does that mean? Participate in what? They're just not going to clear their property? Is that what they're saying?
No. They came to our initial meeting at the fire department. They filled out my survey and they said they wanted to start a Firewise community, and they even offered various assistance like their tractor and things like that. And then one of them offered to help me coordinate because I'm alone and I still don't have anybody to help. And when I called them to try to get their forms and also to engage the individual interested in helping with the coordination, they found out that anybody can benefit from the Firewise community in terms of possibly getting a reduction on their insurance costs. And they didn't like that. And I thought, well, I said, at least, if you participate in a Firewise community, it's a gamble. You don't know if the fire is going to come from the west, the north, the south, the east. Anyone who participates, even the ones that don't want to turn in their forms, are going to help us. So I have plenty of people who they didn't want to participate, they don't want to turn in the forms, but they're still doing the work. And that's still good, right? Because at the end of the day, a fire coming from their direction might actually not burn your house down, even if they don't participate. So it's really hard, and I tried to have that discussion, and I've all of a sudden got static on the line with that one. I just am not getting any response.
Wow. Well, that's a shame, and it sounds like you're doing a great job, and I think we would all thank and support you in whatever way we could to keep plugging along. I'm not sure that pitching a discount on homeowners insurance is that wouldn't be what I would lead with. A number of years back, it kind of kept shifting and changing. There were only a few places that maybe USAA, and I don't even know if we
I
have.
didn't start
current-
with that as the
Okay.
coach. No,
All right.
that was a potential, right?
Yeah.
It was. I actually called though the just 2 weeks ago. I called the California Fair Plan,
Yeah.
and then I called AAA, who's my broker, and AAA confirmed that it would that they do give a 5 to 6% discount if you're on the California Fair Plan and you're in Firewise Community, and they looked us up and they saw that we were in training already.
Wow.
So, but it does mean that you have to check with each one of yours,
Yeah.
your brokers, but you know, there's more than one reason, but it seems like that's the reason that people get on board. You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, we just we were evacuated for the river fire.
Oh my goodness.
And
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the fire burned right up to across the highway from our region, our defined, boundary. And so that did cause some interest in other people. And so people who didn't originally say they wanted to participate, I mean, I have received additional now forms. Now I have someone on the other side of the road who is going to join. So I have decided to try to just relax and just be happy that I have the ones that I have. And again, I typed in the chat that the way I started out was, who knows who has email, and we certainly didn't have everyone's phone number, but what we did have is everyone's address. So I paid out of my own money. It cost me like $150 to do everything that I did. And I paid it out of my own pocket. And I mailed everybody through U.S. Postal Service a flyer and a letter and invited them to a meeting and at the fire department. And that was 50 something properties. And out of that, only 10 people showed up. And out of that, others said we couldn't come, but they wanted to be involved. So that was about 13 total wanted to be involved out of 50 something properties. And then at the end of the day, I'm happy to say that while a couple of the people who were interested at the beginning did not follow through, other people showed up and filled in the gap. And so I have 13 sets of my forms to get started. So,
well, you're doing a great job, and your numbers are very standard, let me tell you.
So that's what I'm happy about. I'm very happy about it, and I have a feeling that it could bump up a little as the year goes by next year, and that maybe someone will want to help me.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Virginia has had her hand up. Would you like to go ahead, Virginia?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
In regards to the insurance company, so from what my understanding is that the State of California Insurance Commission is putting pressure on insurance companies to look at the homes, look at the hardening, look at the fire safe neighborhoods, and take that into consideration with the premiums. And we did get dropped. We didn't really know why we got dropped. So we got a new company, and they came around and they did an inspection, and they were happy to know that we were in a Firewise neighborhood. So I think it's slow, but I think the insurance companies are starting to recognize it, especially AAA apparently. And I think we have to, get our people to talk to their insurance companies about it. And I know some people, I totally hear what you say. Some people think if they fill out a form, the police are going to come. But I just was very happy that our insurance agent, our new insurance agent, recognized it, acknowledged it. And if they're going to do the, the resistance checks when people sell their homes, then I think if insurance companies can sort of start to enforce that a little bit more, then people won't have this big surprise when they go to sell their home, because it will have already been done, for the insurance company.
Right.
If that
Thank you.
makes sense.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you. Paulette, go ahead.
have to unmute me. We actually had one of our members call Cal Fair because that's where they had to get their insurance. And Cal Fair told them that there would be a discount once we became a Firewise community. Whoever she talked to there did tell her to let them know when we became a Firewise recognized community, that they would then get a discount.
Great.
So
Thank you. Thank you. And I think if
You're welcome.
back to my slide here, the very last bullet, what benefits do community members see for being a certified Firewise community? So we're hearing here that there are insurance plans, including the FAIR plan and AAA, and there are probably a few others who will give you a small discount if you're in a Firewise community. There's also, if you can get the people and the participation, the benefits are, having some sort of structure around which you can try to organize neighborhood projects, work days, and that sort of thing. And of course, all of that has been made just so much more difficult during the pandemic. But if we ever get back to some sense of normalcy, that should hopefully come back again. Is there anybody else who has a specific comment on what benefits you see for being a certified Firewise community? Anybody? I've got one more slide. We're 8 minutes away from wrapping this up. And whoops, end of slideshow. What I want to do is also just talk about in 2022, excuse me there, Bob had asked, if anybody had any thoughts about neighborhood projects for 2022, let's say starting in May, if you wanted to have some sort of work day. Apparently the NFPA is really suggesting that people focus on 0 to 5 feet in that whole new 0 to 5 feet zone. NFPA is apparently even saying, monitor it. I know none of us want to be in a position of being the local Firewise police, right? We just don't want to go there. And but maybe some sort of rah something or other. Vicky, you could unmute and go ahead if you have a comment on that.
I do have a comment. You may recall that the union did an article that maybe wasn't the most clear, and it sounded like in 2023 that there was going to be a county ordinance that required you to do the first 5 feet. I talked to the county and they said, no, that's not what it is. That in 2023, the county is required to advise people about the first 0 to 5 feet, which was good. My first reaction was, my house is pretty Firewise, but I'm not cutting down my Japanese maple that's next to my house. You could just tell everybody had an emotional reaction to that first 5 feet. So I talked to Pete Williams, who is on the board of the Fire Safe Council. He's a member of our Firewise community, and he's also doing a lot of work around DSAVs. So we came up with this concept of, I'm going to call it good, better, best. And the idea is that you might want to lay out for people what is good. Good would be no dead wood next to the house. There might be your Japanese maple is pruned away from your house by 2 feet. Maybe. And the best would be no vegetation next to the house in the first 5 feet or something like that. And so I think the one thing is that there is not information available to people on what they're supposed to do in the first 5 feet. I looked at the Fire Safe Council's website, and there was one sentence about what to do in the first 5 feet, which I thought, maybe we need to give people more information. So the idea that Pete had, and this is still in the cooking stage, is that he might talk to the people that are doing DSAVs and ask them to help us put together what should be in the, good, better, best. Like good would be, in my mind, is like, what's the bare minimum? Like no firewood next to your house in the summertime, and sort of degrees of goodness, because I know that a lot of us have passion around the plants that are next to our house, the shrubs.
Right.
There's also a lot of debate about, can you have ground cover, highly irrigated, 4 inches high? Is that the best? Is that good? You know, so anyway,
Right.
the idea being is to collect some information. I also talked to
Vicki, we need to kind of wrap this up. We just have a few more minutes and I want to give Bob Long a chance to say something. Did you have one more point? Very brief.
one point. I talked to Jen Tamo from the county, and she and I have talked about a couple of options. We're going to get together in January and talk about options.
Okay, thank you. Bob, go ahead.
So Susan, there is a lot of information on 0 to 5 feet. There is a tear sheet that the NFPA has, and if we don't have it on the coalition website, I'll look and I'll get it to you.
Okay.
The 0 to 5 feet, a wood pile next to your house does not belong even in the good, better, best. It belongs 30 feet away from your house in all situations. What the advisors are recommending is, I mean, best is bare mineral earth 5 feet around your house. Well, nobody wants that. Next is concrete. Nobody wants that either. So the solution is rock as mulch, and that's what I've done around my house. I have plants all around my house, but they're all maintained, and underneath those plants is 5 feet of rock. And what it turns out is that's the best thing you could ever do to your house, because I can now blow all the leaves, clear all the leaves and debris around my house in about 10 minutes, because they're landing on rock, and my leaf blower just knocks everything right off the rock, and I now have a clean perimeter around my house. So there is a lot of information about 0 to 5, and maybe we can deal with this in the new year and do a 10 or 15 minutes at one of our coalition meetings.
Sure. And there is a 7-minute video from Marin County specifically on 0 to 5, and that is on our website right now under education resources, up at the top under best of the best of education resources. I don't think anybody would suggest ever taking down a Japanese maple, because you also have to understand about fire behavior. And a Japanese maple is not going to create enough mass and enough heat and enough flame to put a house on fire, whereas a juniper would. So you don't want juniper because it has a lot of mass and oil and creates a lot of heat. Japanese maple doesn't. So we just got like 2 minutes to go, and let's ask, let's just basically say, was this meeting helpful? Is this something that we should do quarterly? And let me also just share that our concept for moving forward when we can get back together again is we have talked to the folks up at Nevada County Media, which is on Whispering Pines, or the circle there, right near where we used to meet in the realtor section. And they have the ability to hold a meeting that is both in person and virtual. And our concept is that when it feels safe and meets requirements and all of that to get back together again, that we would have the Firewise community representatives be the people who come in person, and then members of the public would be asked to only attend virtually. And that's the direction in which we're moving at this point in time. And it would ideally, hopefully, let's cross our fingers that this is what will happen at some point next spring. I don't know if it's going to be as early as February, but we'll see. So if you have any comments on that, please put those in the chat. If this was helpful to you, please put that in the chat. I will be downloading the chat and processing a lot from it, since there was a lot there that we were not able to get to. But my impression is that this has been helpful. Certainly, we had 53 at the beginning, and 37 of you are still here an hour and a half later. So it seems to me that this has been some benefit. Bob, you're grinning. What are you grinning at?
No, I think it's interesting that some people left. No, I think it's great. I think this is the kind of valuable thing that the leaders can share, and we share best ideas.
Right. And we were afraid that this was kind of getting lost in the shuffle with all of the public. And I want to thank Dick Menser, especially from Stonebridge, for encouraging us and kind of nudging us along to just say, please don't forget about the needs of the Firewise community leaders. So that's why we had this meeting tonight. We might do another one. Let's see, November, December. So, if we're not ready to go back in person, let's say by February or March, then we will do another one of these things 3 months from now. So sort of a quarterly thing until we get back in person. Dick, go ahead. Whoops, where'd you go?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
I just, thank you. I thought, for me, it was the kind of meeting that I think that we need as Firewise leaders, where we're hearing what people are doing and what things are really available for us to use. The other meetings are helpful to understand what the context of the whole fire situation is in the community. But this is the kind of thing that I appreciate.
Right, great, thank you. And we do have a Facebook group. If any of you committee people or leaders are on Facebook, and if the chair of your group isn't, but somebody on your committee is a member of Facebook, just go there and look for Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities, ask to join the group, and that is a place where you can post questions and have other members of Firewise Communities chime in and hopefully get answers for you. So unless somebody has something really, really urgent that you want to say, we'll keep this open for a few minutes afterwards for you to put things in the chat, but I do want to end on time and let everybody get to have dinner and such. Thank you very, very much for coming, and have a good holiday. Thanks, Virginia.
Happy
Thanks, Bob.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
to
you,
everybody.
everyone.
Yes, thanks, Pat, for coming, and everybody who participated and submitted questions and gave comments. Appreciate it.
I learned a lot too.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Alan is still here. Hi there, Alan. Thanks for Alan Dorr is the Fire Safe Council board member. He's the GIS guy who makes those great maps. And we'll probably have an updated map of all Firewise communities fairly soon.
Yes, I'll get you one very soon, Susan.
Thanks, Alan.
It was a great meeting.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to close it out right now unless anybody else has something else to say, or Virginia can do that, and Virginia will stop the recording. Thanks, everybody.